It is once again time. Now this is becoming a regular thing, especially now that the Raw is boring as fuck, and I don't know, there's really no need to talk about SmackDown because Raw always has more talking points even though it sucks more. I'm going to do like a little collaboration video again. It's kind of a regular thing, so it's the other show with the other guy. A few things I wanted to talk about today, a little bit of a wrestling news there, and also I'm going to be drifting a little bit away from the wrestling toward the end. I'm going to like test some waters here, dip my foot in the pool before I jump all the way in. I don't know how many of you guys that watch our videos are into sports, mainly football, basketball, baseball, stuff like that. I kind of want to start talking about that kind of stuff on a more consistent basis. I know I've tried it before and it didn't work out that way, but I kind of think that this might be the moment, starting now, that this is the moment. Starting now is the beginning of the genesis of the Otharsho. But let's start things off with before I kick this Otharsho off. Haha. Dolph Ziggler reference. No, but for real, I want to do a Q&A where you guys ask me questions. I did get a few questions on the last show. I just want to kind of like trample them up so I can do like a whole video of a Q&A. So if you guys want to ask me anything, like movies, music, wrestling, sports, football, baseball, soccer, basketball, current events, politics. What did I think of the music video Without Me by Eminem in 2002? Who do I think is the hottest celebrity female actress at the moment? Scarlett Johansson. Stuff like that. Mail in your questions. Get them in now so I can do a whole Q&A video because I honestly want to do one of those. I'm kind of tired of doing these wrestling news videos just because, like, I don't know, man. I feel like I'm hammering my point home so much when I do these videos, and you'll see what I'm talking about when I do this one. So let's spice it up. Let's change things up a little bit. Send me in your questions. But let's start things off with one of the main talking points in the WWE right now. It's a hot topic. A lot of people are talking about it. Brock Lesnar versus Bill Goldberg happening most likely at Survivor Series. Now, there's a lot of people that are crying about it, that are complaining about it. Oh, their fucking match in 2004 sucked. Why would it be any good now? Well, first of all, you self-righteous piece of shit. You probably sucked in 2004 looking back in retrospect. Would you like to say that you're at least somewhat better now? No, but on a serious note, that was a different era, you know. That was when Goldberg and Lesnar were both leaving, going on to bigger and better things, couldn't give a shit about the company. You can argue that right now Brock Lesnar maybe just doesn't care, but if you're to tell me that Brock Lesnar matches are not the best matches that the WWE puts on right now, you are completely full of shit. And if he does put on the best matches in the WWE right now, while putting in half that effort, then I have no doubt in my mind that this will be better than the 2004 match. This also comes at the perfect time for the WWE because the ratings are at like a record low. Like, fuck, man. A couple of months ago, we were complaining that, you know, Ambrose was drawing low fucking ratings, and I think Roman Reigns had a record low rating as well during his title reign. But Jesus Christ, dude, I don't think they've cracked a 2 in like 5 or 6 weeks. But I don't know. I mean, I just want to go back to the whole, this notion that Lesnar is lazy thing coming from the Smarks. Yeah, there's an argument to be had there because Brock Lesnar doesn't seem like he tries as much, and also because it's believable in the sense that Brock Lesnar really doesn't give a shit about the WWE. But I want to say this. I come back at you guys at the Smarks that fucking complain about Lesnar getting pushed because he's lazy. Guys, CM Punk, your fucking lord and hero. I hate to keep bringing him up because he's a fucking loser, but I'm going to do it anyway. He admitted to not putting any effort into his matches in his last year, during his last run in the WWE from Payback 2013 up until after the Royal Rumble in 2014. And yet, all I can hear is people crying and bitching that he was buried during that era. Well, guess what? CM Punk admitted to not putting any effort into his matches. You're burying Brock Lesnar for that very exact same reason. But CM Punk is this god that can't be touched. And Brock Lesnar all of a sudden, just because Dean Ambrose said it on a podcast, which by the way, you fucking hate Dean Ambrose now. So that in and of itself makes you a fucking hypocrite because you're taking the opinion of a guy who you hate now seriously. And all of a sudden, you've turned on Brock Lesnar. It's just fucking retarded. And they're also burying Goldberg because they think he's fat, but they also love Kevin Owens. So that's all I got to say about that. Sasha Banks versus Charlotte will be contested inside Hell in a Cell. Now, MTO has recently brought up the topic of politics. I've always liked to stay away from that just because it's not only is it really controversial, but it's also, I honestly think arguing about politics with someone is a waste of time because there's good and bad in every single politician, and sometimes no matter how you explain what the good is to you about one politician, there's just no way of getting through to someone else who has different viewpoints, and that's okay. Everyone should have their own viewpoints as it refers to politics because what benefits me, basically what I eat, doesn't make you shit. So that's fine. But the reason that I want to tie the two together is because Vince McMahon is good friends with Donald Trump. So I'd like to assume that Vince is going to vote for Donald Trump. Linda McMahon has gone out and publicly voiced her support for Donald Trump. Yet the Sasha Banks versus Charlotte feud seems more catered to the Hillary Clinton audience, considering, I mean, it's not to say that this feud is evil and corrupt and deletes emails, but let's think about it. One of the main selling points of Hillary Clinton's campaign has been the whole feminazi angle. And okay, and before I get sterilized, before I get attacked, before people come to my house with pitchforks and flaming sticks, I'd like to clarify that yes, I do believe in the women's division being important in WWE. I've been a Give Divas a Chance movement guy since 2011, just like MTO. Although I don't take it to the extent that MTO does. I've always been a rabid supporter of the Divas division. Alright? And on talking about the further issue, it's not a bad thing to believe in women's rights. I feel like I need to clarify this so I don't look like a sexist monster. It's not a bad thing to believe in women's rights. It's not a bad thing to stand up for your rights if you're a woman. What's bad is believing that you deserve this sort of special treatment and you deserve to be placed above males because you're a woman. And what feminazis don't realize that they're doing when speaking on a lot of their topics is if a man was in that same scenario where they believe a woman should get some slack cut on her, then that male would be looked upon as this disgusting creature. It seems like the WWE is sort of trying to do with their women's division, and that's kind of why it's bombing, at least on the Raw portion of it, because on SmackDown, they're not telling you that they're great just because they're women. They're actually booking them well, and they're actually putting on great matches rather than just telling you they're great just because they're women. So I don't know. I mean, I like the idea, but I think it's a stupid circumstance to have it under. Honestly, just my 2 cents. Something I just wanted to mention quickly here. Paige just got her second suspension from the WWE. We don't know all the details, but from what's circulating around, the rumors say that it could have been some sort of a drug, like cocaine or something along those lines, no pun intended. And it's funny to me because all these people that were burying Del Rio for getting suspended, they were burying Roman Reigns for getting suspended, saying he should get fired. They are now defending Paige, saying she needs all the help she can get right now. She needs to get pushed when she comes back. It's like, that's pathetic, all right? And I'm not going to go too much into detail about this. Obviously, you want Paige to get better, even though, you know, me and MTO don't really like her as a character. As a person, we don't know what she's like, so maybe we do want her to get better, but it's just a pathetic double standard. So, yeah, I just wanted to mention that it's pretty hypocritical that these guys fucking got on Roman Reigns, but when Paige tests positive twice, once for an illegal substance, that's okay. Now, guys, the Cruiserweight division has come back. It's back in full force. We're seeing random guys off the street come in on Raw with no introduction, no backstory, just having matches. This is like the worst possible way that WWE could have gone about it. Okay? The Cruiserweight Classic worked because the people who were tuning in for just to see the good wrestling. All right? The people that didn't watch because they knew it was just going to be good wrestling. There was going to be no backstory and nothing to any other matches aside from mutual respect between the competitors, which is boring. But the reason that it's failing now, as opposed to back then, like I was actually sort of excited to see the Cruiserweight division come back. One of the main reasons that it's not special is because everybody on the roster is a Cruiserweight. Everybody. Think about who won the world title at SummerSlam. He who shall not be named who won the belt at SummerSlam. Back in the day, this guy would have been lucky to defeat Tajiri on an episode of Velocity. Now he's winning world titles on Big Four pay-per-views. That diminishes the specialty of Cruiserweight matches because those are supposed to be the spot fest. Though that's supposed to be where the great wrestling is supposed to happen. And that's supposed to be where the fans get into it because of the great wrestling. But now that every single fucking match is booked like this, there's nothing special behind it, and that's why you're drawing fucking Harambe chants during Cruiserweight matches. That's why nobody cares, and that's why, statistically, I do believe, if my research doesn't fail me, these are the lowest rated segments on Raw. Correct me if I'm wrong, I could be wrong. I might have read that wrong. And you think about the division now compared to back then. All right, it's not just the great matches that got the fans into it that did have a role to play in it. But let's think about the division then and now. Okay, let's look at it then. You had guys like Tajiri, Jamie Noble, Rey Mysterio, Ultimo Dragon, and Matt Hardy. Guys who had character back then, making up the Cruiserweight division. Okay, Tajiri was this fucking little horny Asian guy who tried to fuck Tori Wilson. Jamie Noble was this redneck Southern. He was the original Heath Slater. And by God Almighty, I will say this in front of everybody. He was better than Heath Slater. I love Heath Slater, but Jamie Noble was the original and the better version of Heath Slater. Rey Mysterio didn't really have character, but back then the luchador thing was kind of unique to the WWE. You didn't really see a lot of guys with the mask and with everything. And plus, he was a big star in WCW, so he had name value going into the WWE. Now look at what we have, okay? And don't give me this crap that these are indie guys who have name value going into the WWE, because WCW nearly ran WWE out of business. Vince McMahon looked at WCW and was intimidated. Vince McMahon, at least before, I don't think he does this now, looks at the places where these guys came from and laughs his ass off at how pathetic their shows are and how pathetic their drawing rates are. In other news, Hideo Itami is injured. Normally, I wouldn't give two shits about an NXT news source, but Hideo Itami is injured. And I'm not laughing because Hideo Itami is injured. I don't like seeing guys get injured. I'm not a fan of New Japan Pro Wrestling where they fucking whip each other like on the Passion of the Christ. But this just further proves my point. How many how many of your guys do you want to see get hurt before you finally admit to yourself that these guys just don't have what it takes to make it in the WWE? All right? It's not a question of wrestling talent, alright? We all know that they all have it. I've gone on this rant too many times to further explain it, but just understand that we don't knock them for their wrestling talent. We knock them for many other reasons as to why they wouldn't be able to make it in the WWE. This being one of them. Durability is like probably the most important thing you can have when it comes to wrestling. And these guys just don't have it, and this further proves my theory. So I just wanted to take my hat off to the head writer of WWE SmackDown. I know we were making a SmackDown appreciation video coming out very relatively soon. But this is a little side one that I don't think I mentioned in the recording of that video because we already have it done. Should be coming out sometime soon, like I said. The booking of Dolph Ziggler on SmackDown has actually been pretty damn good. The only issue is I still don't care about Dolph Ziggler. Now, that's not to say that nobody cares about Dolph Ziggler anymore. I think I can honestly say that they've at least gotten the casual fans to get behind the guy somewhat. I still think he sucks, which is why I still don't like the guy. But in 2 short months, this guy gave Dolph Ziggler a good program to run off of and did a great job of getting the fans to care. The pop Dolph Ziggler got when he won the Intercontinental Championship, that's a legitimate pop from the fans and not a forced smart pop like MTO so happily explained a few videos ago. Like, the difference between the two, you can tell. These fans actually fucking gave a shit when Dolph Ziggler won the Intercontinental Championship. And I feel like that speaks more to the volumes of the booking of Dolph Ziggler more than Dolph Ziggler himself, because even the smarts themselves turned on Dolph Ziggler. This is what happens when you have a match with stakes, when you book it masterfully, and you make us care about the guys in the fucking match. And this goes back to my argument that the wrestling itself is not as important as the backstory going into it. Now, I still don't care about Ziggler, just because I don't like the guy, but I can definitely acknowledge great booking when great booking is there. So my hat's off to the SmackDown head writer. Alright, finally to wrap this thing up, I wanted to dip my foot in the pool of sports. Now, I don't know how many of you guys play fantasy football. I am a huge fantasy football fan. I have like 4 or 5 teams. Sometimes I may be asking you for advice, but if you have any advice that you want to ask of me, you have a fantasy football team that needs some help, you want trade requests, who you should add, who you should drop, any sort of questions, like I don't know if any of you watch NFL Fantasy Live, you can ask me questions like that. I'd love to answer them. I'm not an expert, but I honestly don't think anybody that talks about fantasy is an expert, because fantasy football really boils down to luck. So, not just that, and on the next other show, because I'm running kind of long here, I'll probably do week predictions. But as for right now, just send in your fantasy football questions if you guys play fantasy football. If not, send me any sort of questions, actually. Wrestling questions, football questions, sports questions, movie questions, whatever you want to talk about, we can talk about here on the other show. Now, another sport I wanted to talk about before I wrap this completely up was playoff baseball. The ALCS and NLCS are now set. The Cleveland Indians are taking on the Toronto Blue Jays on the American League side. And on the National League side, my boys, the Dodgers, made it through to the National League Championship Series. They'll be taking on the heavily favored Cubs. You know what? On a little side note here, can we take the time to acknowledge that the Dodgers-Nationals Game 5 of the NLDS is one of the greatest baseball games ever? Like, so much shit was happening. Lead changes twice in the game, and that doesn't sound like a lot, but the way that it happened kind of makes up for the fact that it didn't happen as often as maybe the great games do have it. But this, I think, on an emotional level, took me on just a bigger roller coaster. Another game that I remember off the top of my head that was incredible was Game 6 of the 2011 World Series between the Rangers and the Cardinals, when the Cardinals were down to their final out. Their final strike, I believe, and David Freese hit like a triple to give the Cardinals either the tie or the lead. And then, it was the tie in the 9th inning, and then they ended up winning it in extras on a David Freese home run, I believe. So there is that. But I'd like to take the time to acknowledge that that is one of the greatest postseason games I have ever seen in my life. So I just want to give my predictions on the ALCS and NLCS before I wrap this up. I have the Indians taking it in 7, the Cubs taking it in 6. Yes, I know, heart-wrenching to all of us out there because you guys love the other guy. The other guy loves the Cubs. The other guy loves the Dodgers. So, in essence, I guess in domino effect, you guys will be hurt because I will be hurt. But that's how baseball works. I'd love to believe. I think we could beat the Cubs, but I just don't see it happening. You know, the Cubs are just too good. So, the Indians I took in 7, just for the simple fact, you know, it's not even really. That one is not really based on stats or analyticals or anything like that. I just took the Indians in 7 just because these two are evenly matched. Like, supremely evenly matched, where I just couldn't make a decision. So I just took the Cinderella story of, you know, the World Series of two snake-bitten franchises about to battle it out for their first World Series in a long, long time. So, yeah, that's pretty much that. So, that'll wrap up the other show. I know I ran kind of long. I do apologize for that. Unless you guys like it. If you guys like me running long, I can do more long shows. Sometimes I actually do like doing the longer shows just because I can go more in detail about what I'm talking about. So, yeah, this has been the other show with the other guy saying yada yada yada, blah blah blah, good and bye.